But it's okay because I'm a travel writer, and yesterday I spent time in Caldwell, Kansas. Is anybody here from Caldwell? It is the, in case you didn't already know it, the ornate box turtle capital of the world. Give it up for Caldwell. Yeah, so I went there and enjoyed myself considerably. Thanks very much for the introduction, Becky. It's a real thrill to be here at the Fox Theater under these gorgeous, if you haven't even looked up yet, look at these restored light fixtures, these gorgeous Art Deco features in the theater. I was here on a blogger press trip, familiarization tour in 2009 with Becky and Cody and Bill and Deb and a whole bunch of other great folks, and we toured the Fox as part of our introduction to Hutchinson, and I certainly never thought that in 2011 I would be speaking from the stage of the Fox Theater to you at a tech conference in the middle of Kansas. Because I assure you, when the initial invitation came to visit Hutch, I really did not want to come here. I am a city kid. I've grown up in urban and suburban areas. My mother is from a small town in East Texas, Winsboro, and whenever we visited my grandmother there in the summer and parked ourselves underneath the Texas stop sign, otherwise known as the Dairy Queen sign, I looked around me and I said, if I had to live in a place like this, I would kill myself. Oh my God. Misery. I could not imagine living in a small town. So here comes an email from some guy named Cody Heitschmidt, who said, hi, I'm a friend of Becky's. She said that I ought to contact you. Would you like to come to Hutch? And I got out a map. I looked at a map of Kansas. Hutchinson was a spot in the middle of what, as far as I could see, was nothingness. There were a whole lot of highways that went this away straight and a whole lot of highways that went that away straight. And I said, I can get that in Texas. Why do I want to go up to Kansas and look at it? But I had just finished speaking about travel blogging at the South by Southwest Tech Conference in Austin, and I had said, you know, any knucklehead can write about my secret Tuscany or my favorite spots in Paris. When you go to places like that where everything around you is awesome, that's a piece of cake to write about. The really good writers go to the places that don't sound interesting and find something interesting there. So I looked at that map of Kansas and I said, all right, Miss Smarty Pants, now you're going to go and you're going to check this out because you said you could handle this and you're going to go make some lemonade out of this lemon. And I got here and I fell in love with the place. And it was the beginning of really exploring what goes on and what the concerns are, the joys, the fears in rural areas and small towns. And I'd just never really been exposed to that before. People like @Tykerman1, Steve Tucker, read an article about him on CNN and tracked him down. He's a guy who tweets from his tractor and writes a wonderful blog in Nebraska. I had no concept of how you tweet from a tractor because the only tractor I could think of was one of those open ones, you know, that you kind of bump along in and dirt flies around and whatever the heck you do with tractors. I don't know. I'm a city kid. And I got hold of him and I said, how do you do the tweet thing? And he says, well, I'm in my air-conditioned cab and I set the GPS and I do it on my BlackBerry. And I was like, oh, I had some preconceived notions about that one. There was a speaker here last year who, the title of his presentation is My Tractor is a Robot. And he did an amazing job of explaining all the technology that goes into modern day farming and agriculture. I'd never been exposed to that kind of stuff. I'd never known people until Twitter and social media who do that sort of thing daily. And so I really had no understanding until then. I found, for example, Becky has got a bucket calf. I now know what a bucket calf is. I did not know before. And his name is Bubby. And we have watched him grow up. We've seen Flickr photos and Twit pics and such go up with Bubby and his developments. But you know what? There's now a personal angle because I see tweets from Becky when she's out taking care of Bubby. And I see tweets from Becky and from other people who are out working on fixing windmills and fixing fences that need repair and working and worrying about the drought. You know, as a suburban urban person, you know, the drought is something more I now understand than just that my lawn might die. You know, Becky's business might die because of the drought. And I understand that Bubby is not a pet. Bubby is a steak with legs, multiple steaks. God bless him. And so, you know, it's her business, and it's her livelihood along with her husband, Joe, to run the cattle ranch. I now have a much better understanding of the joys and the concerns of small town life that I didn't have before. I've learned that ag nerds can be anywhere. I was speaking at a small town in Texas called Rockdale, and I asked the audience, you know, anybody here have a blog or on Facebook or on Twitter? And let's just say there wasn't exactly a forest of arms going up. And then out of the blue, I said, okay, are any of you photography fans, digital photography, anybody here on Flickr? And one face lit up and one arm shot up, and it was a young preacher there in town who was a photography enthusiast and who was on Flickr and didn't know anybody else around him who was on Flickr. And I said, there's a whole world of Flickrites out there, and you need to meet my business associate, Becky, because she's really into photography. And that's when I realized, yeah, you know, everyone is not going to be clustered necessarily on the channels that you would expect, but ag nerds are everywhere. You just have to kind of dig and dig and dig to find out where they are. If it's not Twitter, it's going to be someplace else. The other thing that I've learned, the third thing, is that in order to have hybrid vigor, you have to go where there are people that are different from you. I can go hang out in tourism chat on Twitter, and that's my tribe, that's my crowd, that's my thing. But when I go over and hang out on ag chat, I learn something totally different. So if you're an egg person and you hang out with all the egg people on Twitter, that's great, but take some time to go find the ball-bearing people. What are the ball-bearing people talking about in their chat? Because you will be stunned at the connections you can draw and the new things you can learn by going and getting outside that comfort zone. Go hang around with people who are different from you. When I do that as a city kid, I learn about robotic tractors. I learn about GPS and Blackberries and people tweeting from tractors, and I get a whole new appreciation and a whole new insight to a life that I hadn't thought of before. In closing, I have a final request as a city person. I would like to ask that even as city people should not make assumptions that rural folks and small town folks are country bumpkins or hayseeds, let's put away this business of people saying that rural areas and small towns are the real America. As this, in Texas, as we say, people who say that, I say, bless their heart. Okay? Let's put away this who's the real America thing. You know, really the only real Americans are the ones that said hi to Hernando de Soto in the 1500s. So let's put that aside. We're all real Americans, no matter where we're from, whether you're from out in the middle of nowhere, which you don't think is the middle of nowhere because that's your home, or whether you're from a city and you're like me and much more comfortable with a subway map of the Yamanote line in Tokyo than you are farm equipment that has prongs on it that I don't understand. So, thank you very much for the chance to speak this morning.